I first encountered James Cone in seminary as part of my introduction to liberation theology, to Black liberation theology. And upon reading some of his words, the words that Tim shared amongst them, on reading some of his books, notably a book entitled The Cross and the Lynching Tree, my first reaction was to the strong language, to the angry tone, to what felt like the castigating and the vilifying of white people. And by proxy, me. Felt like I was being told I am not good enough, I am not worthy enough, I am wrong. And my first reaction was to deny that. And then my next reaction was to question that. Say, well, what does he know? That doesn't jive with my experience of the world. He doesn't know me. I'm a good liberal person. I'm not one of those people. And I got angry. Questioned some more. And the more I thought about it, the easier it was to get depressed. To say, actually, you know what? He might be right. So I invite you to check in with yourself. If you're a person of color, I ask that you pay attention to your body and to your spirit. In reading the name Amir Locke, whether you knew that name before this morning, or if it's come as a shock to you, to learn that another young Black person was killed by the state. Or to investigate if that does not come as a shock at all. If there's only numb resignation and recognition. If you're not a person of color, if you look like me, I invite you to investigate if there's any discomfort in your body. Is there a little queasiness? The queasiness I first heard and felt in my body upon reading the words of James Cone. Talked about white devils, the demonicness of whiteness. See the word the lynching tree next to the word cross, symbol that is so powerful for me, so meaningful for me. It's your tightness in your chest. If you're witnessing me up here talking about white supremacy culture again, I hear that. If you have questions coming up, let's start with but. But we are not all white supremacists. But there must be more to the story. But he sounds so angry. But why do we need to hear this? We are not them. You feel it up here. I hear that. I feel it here. There are lots of fun academic sermons I would love to give on James Cone. to investigate his systematic theology, to lift up the absolute giggling joy he has when he writes the words in reference to the whiteness of Christianity and to the whitewashing of Jesus, as he would call it. He would say that at its heart, the tradition of Christianity, when it is in its most lived experience, when it is at its truest and most fulfilling and life-giving form, comes out of the Black experience in America, the Black church. And giggling, he wrote the words, "Christ is Black, baby. Christ is Black, baby." And if that's true, if Christ is Black, baby, then Christ is in Black babies. Regardless of what they were wearing, where they were walking, how they were acting. There can be no justification for the murder of Black bodies bearing the Christ power, as I call it. So check in with yourself. What are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? Where is the discomfort? And then I invite you to ask why. What is my body telling me? What am I trying to hold on to or protect? What is being threatened by the words of James Cone, the words of Tim Steyer, the words here? And what's it trying to protect me from? Is it trying to protect me from discomfort? Is it trying to protect me from feeling guilty or ashamed or attacked? It's what my body was trying to protect me from. It's what my body continues to try to protect me from, even these years later. Whenever I engage in this justice work, whenever I feel like something is being asked of me by Black colleagues, by Black leaders, by friends, when I hear news about someone like Amir Locke, sometimes my first reaction is to assume the worst about that person. Well, what must they have been doing? There must be more to this story. And then I feel ashamed about that. And reading the words of Black colleagues who call for solidarity from white ministers like me, from white people like me. Sometimes there's a reluctance. I feel that around my chest. Sometimes I get angry. Why do we have to keep talking about this? I'm tired of this. And I read these words from Cone. It says, the most urgent, the most disgraceful, the most shameful, and most tragic problem is silence. I say, okay. So we'll do that today. Then next week, we can get back to the program. And then I feel ashamed of that. And I feel a little guilty. Because then I read the words that this is emotional, hard work. It's a struggle. And if you are tired as a white person of talking about race, just imagine how exhausted people of color must feel, he writes. Talking about how to destroy white supremacy is a daily task. And if we only talk about white supremacy at special occasions set aside for that, the problem will never be solved. Blacks do not have the luxury of just dealing with racism in church meetings or academic settings. If that were true, it wouldn't be so bad. No day passes in which Blacks don't have to deal with white supremacy. It is found everywhere in the churches, seminaries, publishing houses, and government all around the world. There is no escape. If whites get tired of talking about race, just imagine how exhausted people of color must feel. So what are you feeling? A question I ask almost every week. How does that make you feel? And I don't ask that just to keep pushing an agenda. I ask that because in my experience, that was the key to opening the door to investigating where in that grief response I was to the challenge of Black liberation theology, to the challenging words of James Cone, to the challenge of living in a racist, oppressive society that lifts up whiteness as the norm. Am I in denial? Am I angry? Am I questioning? Am I depressed? Or have I moved through all of that into something like acceptance and meaning making? So if you're feeling tired of talking about this, if you're kind of shutting down and listening to me, I invite you to come back, find where it is in your body, put your hand on it, and send some love and care towards that space in your body. Because it's okay to feel those things. I'm telling you, I still feel those things. Even when I put on my Black Lives Matter shirt and wear my stole and come up here and rail against a culture of white supremacy. I know it's hard. And I wish we didn't have to keep talking about it. I wish it was just something that those people needed to hear. But it is something we all need to hear. And it is a struggle. And it is challenging. And just like James Cone wrote, there is joy to be found in this work, in the justice work. He writes, the anti-racist struggle can happen wherever you are, not just in churches or in synagogues or places of worship, not just in the government, but in any situation. It is the most satisfying activity one can do. Cone writes, I just love it. I would not take anything for the opportunity to be involved in it. He says, if you do not love racial justice work, don't do it. He writes, we need and want people who are human beings first, which means taking the same risks for the stranger that they take for their own kind. It's a challenging message. When we feel like, I don't need to do that today. When I feel like that, when I feel like I can sit this one out, I don't need to do that today. I come back to what we talk about with joys and concerns. We say that we're going to share the joys and struggles of life together. And how we love sharing the joy. I love sharing the joy. And I think we need to do it more. We need to celebrate more. But if we're not sharing the struggle, if we're not sharing the hardness of life, and we can't really share in the joy either, right? So when Cone writes that there is joy in the struggle, there's light to be found, something that's helped me find and make meaning, find acceptance in this process. Not just in celebrating Black History Month and celebrating the Blackness of our congregation and our country. It's for me as a white person to celebrate that there's opportunity for growth. That when I feel ashamed or uncomfortable, some dis-ease, anger, anxiety, I thank God that I can work through that with the help of Spirit and with friends, through radical love, that I can grow and change, that I can be transformed, that I don't get stuck in that place. I'm not just dry bones in the desert. I celebrate that. And I think we need to celebrate that, not just when we do things well, but celebrate when we don't do things well and we learn from it, we grow from it, we change from it. That we celebrate restoration, repair, transformation. Reminder that it's so easy to feel like a failure when you get something wrong. Cone writes, you're going to get things wrong. Racism is confusing. White supremacy is designed to be confusing. It's designed to be hard to see. It's not supposed to make sense. It's designed to make it so easy to question things about Amir Locke, about Sandra Bland, about Eric Garner, about Trayvon Martin, about Philando Castile, about George Floyd. It wants you to be confused, to get stuck in the grief process. I don't want to be stuck there. I'm trying to work to do the everyday work, to keep going, to keep doing, to metabolize and work through the stuckness that I feel, the dis-ease, the anxiety, the discomfort. Instead of leaning away from the tiredness of talking about race and white supremacy culture, I can deny it, pretend it doesn't exist, but that's not going to help me. It's not going to heal me. It's not going to heal our world. So rather than denying the discomfort, to lean into it, to find where it is in my body, to try and find ways to let it go and celebrate when I work through those things. Instead of denying it, to double down and say, you know what? Instead of trying not to see where racism and white supremacy culture is in this, I'm going to start looking for it everywhere. Because the easier it is to notice in yourself, the easier it is to notice in everything. And if you can know it and you can see it, then you can fight it and you can work through it. Because the systems of oppression, as Cone wrote, are in everything. There's nowhere that white supremacy is not present. That's how it's designed. So if we start looking for racial justice through a racial justice lens at everything, and we start thinking about it as theological, spiritual, faith-filled work, as Unitarian Universalists, then I think we're on the right path. Because I will tell you, those people, them, they see it as spiritual work. And they look through a racial lens. So what are we called to do? Stephen Colbert recently gave an interview on his own show and talking about grief and discomfort and failure. He quoted the poet Robert Hayden, who said, "We must not be frightened or cajoled into accepting evil as our deliverance from evil. We must keep struggling to maintain our humanity, though monsters of abstraction threaten and police us." Friends, I feel you. I've been angry. I've been questioning. I've been in denial. I've been depressed. I've been upset. I've been ashamed. I've been guilty. I've been convicted and feeling committed. I've been tired. but the joy and the hope that we can learn and grow. We can learn to know better and then do better. We can be better and build better. That's where the Spirit is for me. So I'm not going to be silent. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, please do this ritual. Find where it is in your body. Try and send some love. Let it go. Put it to the side. Do what you can to work through that process and ask those questions. What is my body trying to protect me from? What am I protecting or holding on to? And if you find a way to work through that, we should celebrate it. We shouldn't be ashamed or guilty. We should celebrate transformation and learning. Heaven knows how we will get there. And the road will be muddy and rough, but we will get there. We will get there. May there be liberation. May there be healing. May there be justice. Amen.
Wow. Thank you, Reverend Sim.